Hello, this is Dr. Kevin Garrison. I'm Associate Professor of English at Angelo State University, and this is the first video in a series of lectures on writing and technology. Today's lecture will work with a simple thesis, and that thesis is this. Technology is an ideology. And four words are pretty easy to say. It's relatively complicated though, so let's dive into it. First, what is technology? It's easier to find by what it's not, so let's give three definitions of what it isn't. I think most people, when they hear the word technology, think of it in terms of high tech. We think of cell phones, we think of computerized systems, digital systems, we think of wearable technologies like Fitbits and Vivo Active smartwatches. We think of anything that's not pretty mundane. If you go to, for instance, the NewYorkTimes.com, or if you go to the Washington Post or CNN.com, nearly all the major news networks have a link to a technology page or a high-tech page. You won't find anything on these pages that is mundane. It's all the newest, the latest, and the greatest. When we talk about technology, we're not talking about necessarily just high-tech. We're also not talking about the hidden technologies of life. Robert Johnson, in his book User-Centered Technology, calls these the mundane technologies. These are the things that you don't even realize you're using every day. The clothes that you're wearing, the sidewalk that you walk on, the blinker that you use when you're driving to and from your place of residence. And the stuff is hidden. The image I put here is a paper clip. It's important, obviously, to uniting a couple of pieces of paper together, but past that, it's mundane, it's hidden. Donald Norman calls it the design of everyday things. That's what this is. It's an everyday thing. It's hidden. We don't think about it in terms of technology. It just is. A third definition is a little more complicated. If you're familiar with activity systems, this is the image from activity systems. In essence, a simplified version of this is that a technology is never used in isolation. It's always used in a network in conjunction with other technologies, with people, with tools, with specified outcomes, with constraints in specific distribution patterns and whatnot to make it happen. So obviously, if you go back to the previous slide, when you're talking about something like a paperclip is not used in isolation. It's always used within an activity system. If the big activity in higher education is getting students to walk out of here with diplomas, that's the activity. Everything that I do, the office space, the books that I've read, the diplomas that I have on my wall, the classes that I teach, the grades that I distribute to my students, the comments, are all designed to have one thing in mind, and that is a specified outcome of providing students with a diploma. In that sense, a paperclip becomes much less mundane. It becomes radically important because a paperclip unites papers together. It becomes a part of that communication process within that activity system, and the paperclip organizes information and unites information and allows us to put things together in folders and whatnot. For me, the most recent use of a paperclip I got was a couple of days ago. Somebody asked me to sign something for a budget, and had the little line for me to sign and two pieces of paper clipped together. So the paperclip itself is irrelevant. It's sort of boring, but it unites those two pieces of paper together so that I know what to sign, where to turn it back into, put it in the campus mail, and it's part of a much bigger activity system. When we think of systems of technology, I think we're getting a lot closer to what technology actually is. We're talking about transportation systems, we're talking about medical systems, we're talking about educational systems, we're talking about health-based systems, food production systems, etc. I think all of these are extremely limited in terms of their definition, so I'm going to provide a fourth definition, and the one that I think is most accurate, which is that technology is a subject of study, not an object to be discussed. What the heck does that mean? Well, let's break down that word technology. If technology can be broken down to its prefix and suffix, then you can break it down into the logos to the study of techne. Now, if you talk about something like biology or theology, what we're talking about is the study of life or the study of God, respectively. Now, when you lose that, when you no longer have, for instance, a theology and we cut out the middle part of theology, then we go directly to God, Him, or herself. So when we talk about praying to God, and we switch that to no longer having a theology, then we go from praying to God to praying to a theology. Nobody does that. You don't sit down at the side of your bed at night before you go to sleep and say, now I lay me down to sleep, I pray the theology my soul to keep. We don't talk about it that way. Theology is a study of God. Without that study of God, we lose that crucial link of something as a subject. But we don't have that with technology. Technology is not a subject of study. You can't go to a university and major in technology. You can major in engineering, you can major in computer science, you can major in mathematics, you can major in science-related fields like biology or anthropology, which all involve technology, of course. But you cannot get a degree in technology. You can't study techmen. Let that sink in. So technology is one of two words in the English language that, when it has ology at the end of the word, does not refer to a subject of study. It refers to the object itself. This is an object. This is a technology. When we talk about God, we're talking about something more abstract. So, moving on, what the heck does that mean for us? Well, it means several things. Most importantly, it means that, as I said earlier, technology is an ideology. So what does that mean? Well, an ideology, in the words of Jacques Ellul, my favorite theorist, and I think the most articulate about theories of technology, he calls it this. He says it's a popularized, sentimental degeneration of a worldview. Let that one sink in as well. Popularized, sentimental degeneration of a worldview. Let's focus on that first part. It's popularized. It's a popularized worldview. And this is the big question you have to ask. Who goes against technology? What human alive can go against technology? Who can oppose it? Who can obstruct it? Who can argue against it? If you do, then you're labeled as one of two things, either a technophobe or a Luddite. And you have absolutely zero impact on any trend whatsoever. You can sit in your office space or your home. You can write behind a computer screen, or you can write your manifestos about how much you hate technology. You can refuse to use it, but ultimately the iPhone 8 is still going to come out next year. You have zero impact on that. So your Luddite behaviors matter none whatsoever. So what it boils down to is simply this. Technology is. That's what happens when technology ceases to be a subject of study and becomes an object. We simply recognize that the world is technological and there's nothing we can do about that. Let me read a passage from Jacques Ellul. He says the following in his book, Perspectives on our Age. He says that technology is a new milieu in which people live. Principally, this milieu is the city, an entirely artificial world. There's practically no living element here except for the human being. The city is a pure product of technologies. In short, we live in a milieu that is totally dead. One of glass, steel, cement, and concrete, in which technological products replace the old natural milieu in which we used to live. And we think, for instance, that whenever we go on vacation, or we take a trip to the mountains, or we go out to a state park and we take a hike, that we're getting back to our roots. We're getting away from technology into something that's more natural. This is an illusion. Everything is technological in 2017. This book is by A One-Dimensional Man by Herbert Marcuse. He has a very sardonic attitude about this, but he says the following. He says, I take a walk in the country. Everything is as it should be. Nature at its best. Birds, sun, soft grass, the views of the trees of the mountains. Nobody around. No radio, no smell of gasoline. Then the path ends, and ends on a highway, and I am back among the billboards, the service stations, the hotels, and the roadhouses. I was in a national park, and I now know that this was not a reality. It was a quote-unquote reservation. Something that is being preserved like a species dying out. If it were not for the government The billboard, the hot dog stands, and motels would have long since have invaded that piece of nature. I am grateful to the government. We have it much better than before. So to talk about technologies and ideology means that we no longer criticize it. We no longer study it. It is an assumed is. And that sentence right there sums it up. Technology is. Nothing else about it. Nothing else to be said about it. So the last question that we have to grapple with this before this lecture is over is one final question, which is, where does this ideology come from? The temptation is, of course, and this is what Andrew Feinberg, probably the most popular theorist of technology, argues. He says it comes from the top down. That the ideology begins with the technocrats. It's a big word. What he means by technocrats is he means administrators, he means politicians, he means engineers, he means people on research and development teams, anybody who has a position of power who forces us to use technology. So anytime a government entity steps in and says that education must be a certain way, that you must teach a specified curriculum and teach to a specified test with specified outcomes, that is a technocrat who is looking for numbers and efficiency. We turn people in higher education into numbers from a technocratic ideological perspective. For instance, here at Angelo State, everybody's issued a CID or a campus ID number. You become a number. You become a GPA. You become a number in terms of how many years it takes you to graduate or how many semesters it takes you to graduate. You are numerical, and we calculate you and how much you are worth to the university in terms of numbers. So it's pushed on us from the top down. Andrew Feinberg says that the people don't really buy into this kind of idea of efficiency as an ideology. He gives an example right at the outset of his book, Questioning Technology About a House. He says, when somebody buys a house, their goal is never efficiency. They might care about how far their bathroom is away from the living room. Obviously we should, especially if you're playing zombies late at night and you're trying to hold in your urine or something like that. But most of us don't care about the design of our house as long as it's functional. And so anybody who steps in, an architect and a contractor, an engineer, anybody who steps in and designs this and creates that living space for it, they're concerned about a capitalistic code of efficiency. That's their concern. And so efficiency then is found in the house itself, but that is not what me, the user, wants. It's not what, in theory, you want either. Ellul says that this is problematic, and you can see here, Ellul argues that there's a technological ideology that is built from the ground up. He calls this technique. This is rationalized efficiency. Efficiency is driven from us just as much as it's driven from above. In other words, I don't want to pay for a house that's inefficient. I like my light switches. There's nothing more efficient than turning on a light than having one little slip that goes up and down. My daughter at a few months of age figured that out. On, off, on, off. It's really easy to turn on the water and turn it off. When you're talking about light and electricity and water systems in a united grid-like way, obviously it becomes a lot more complicated. But we don't care about that as a user. What I want is efficiency. I want to have a trash can that I can put my stuff in, throw it away, let somebody else come and take it away, put it in the dump, put it in a dump truck, take it to the dump and throw it away, and it becomes somebody else's problem, not mine. I like efficiency. All humans do. And because of that, the technological ideology, from Ellul's perspective, is built from the ground up. Everybody is pushing for this. It's pretty easy to see this in terms of our desire for things like the iPhone 8 and for the next Android operating system, Android 7 point whatever. That's what we're looking forward to, and we're always waiting for our 4K TVs and then our 8K TVs and possibly our 16 and 32K TVs. There's never an end to it in terms of desire for more and more efficiency. All right, so that is the foundational lecture for the semester. Remember again that it's as simple as this. Technology is an ideology. We, the people, as well as people above the technocrat, push for efficiency in our lives. They push for technology. And when we're talking about technology, we're not talking necessarily always and forevermore about objects. We're talking about everything. We're talking about everything that's mundane, everything that we see in front of us, as well as the mind, the mental perspective. All right, so I'm done. Goodbye.